All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to say, Call Allah Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakah HaKudash, and double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who taught us this truth and rule well. And Shalom to the hopeful elect, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakah HaKudash, Barakatam. It's the brother Kazah, coming back at it again with another lesson. And the title of this lesson is going to be Uproars Worldwide. All right? And it's going to be concerning a few situations that's occurring, all over the world. You know what I'm saying? As far as, the people rising up against their rulers, man, their princes and rulers. All right, we're going to start off with the event that happened, about a couple days ago, 2-3 days ago. All right, on July 8th, 2022. All right, it says Shinzo Abe, a former prime minister of Japan, was killed at the age 67 in the shooting attack as he delivered a campaign speech. So this was somebody that was running for president, right? Basically to be prime minister, synonymous with being a president, if I'm not mistaken. But going into the politics and all that, you know what I'm saying? It's basically the same thing, But he's trying to run for to be the leader of Japan, and he got gunned down by a homemade weapon. Which goes to show you that gun control stuff, man. That's a complete fraud, man. It's only to, disarm the people so that Esau could have a roll on them with more ease, But this is just something that happened, all right? And ultimately, this might play into a bigger agenda in the grand scheme of things. Certainly, things will be exposed for what they are in this event, But then we have another article. All right, we're gonna go with the protesters in Sri Lanka. All right, which is somewhere, if I'm not mistaken, it's one of them cities. Let me look up where it's at real quick. All right, so Sri Lanka. All right, where's that at exactly? Just make sure. All right, so it's somewhere in. All right, so it's basically in the southern part of India. All right, and ultimately the reason why we bring this out is to ultimately show, that we are in the latter days. All right, and in these latter days, we gotta get ourselves right. We gotta understand the times that we're in, and ultimately blow the trumpet. All right, to bid the elect into the marriage, and ultimately, prophesy the downfall of Esau's kingdom, and really declaring the downfall of Esau's kingdom, declaring the downfall of all these nations that are set above us. All right, and real soon they're gonna be thrown down to the bottom. All right, starting with Esau, Edom. Okay, so it says protesters storm Sri Lanka's presidential palace, set a prime minister's home ablaze. All right, so they went and they stormed it, and then from what I heard, it was millions of people that came in and they just stormed it all, man. All right, so I'm gonna just go into this article. Okay, I didn't go into the other one because it's a little bit more to be known, as far as surrounding the death of the Japanese ex-prime minister that was trying to become a prime minister once again. So hopefully more news comes out on that. When I mean more news, I mean real news. All right, but anyways, continue on with this article. It reads, protesters on Saturday broke into Sri Lanka's prime minister's private residence and set it on fire. All right, so this is not even, a government building. This is their president's, own house. It's like going into, not the White House, but where Joe Biden lives, like his actual residential house, and setting it ablaze. That's what they basically did in that island. All right, and it says, and set it on fire just hours after entering the country's presidential palace while calling on President GR. I'm just gonna say it like that. I'm not trying to pronounce these complicated ass names, man. You know what I'm saying? These heathens, man, they nameless anyways, man. All right, but it reads, to step down over his handling of the country's economic crisis. All right, so I guess they're in and that's really what it comes down to. Desperation, and uncertainty of the future, and ultimately, frustration of the given order, and its incapability of handling, the country's economic crisis, which really, all that is done by design. This might be, an isolated experiment to see how masses would, react if such a thing was to happen in Babylon. Might be another test trial, or it could just be something that, played out on its own. Because really the whole world is in an economic crisis. All right, the whole world is not in good economic shape. We're talking about inflation. Inflation's happening worldwide. That's why these nations are gearing, to go to war with each other, because that's ultimately what's going to, in their minds, that's going to resolve the issue of the economy. All right, but what they don't know is, what I'm saying, that's when Yahweh Shai, all right, is gonna come back and put these nations in subjection, according to the book of Joel chapter 3. All right, so continuing on, and it says, driving the news, Sri Lankan Prime Minister, see, that's another, I'm gonna just say RW, earlier in the day agreed to resign from his post once all parties agree on forming a new government. All right, so I guess this was the person that, had his house get stormed. So they went and stormed his house after he resigned. All right, for his what's it called? For his lack of being capable. It's another word for it, but what I'm saying, that's basically what happened. So continue on, and it reads, when protesters broke into Rajapaksa's official residency, however, he had been evacuated before they entered the premises. All right, so they were trying to get him, man. Okay, so let me see. I'm just trying to, skim through what's important and what's not important. All right, so I'll just read this through. It says, when protesters broke into Rajapaksa's official residency, however, he had been evacuated before they entered the premises. All right, protesters were seen swimming in the presidential palace's pool and cooking in the kitchen while waving and holding the country's national flags. All right, so brothers already know what preset comes to mind when you read and hear about these things. All right, which we're gonna get them, after we finish up with the other article. All right, so continuing on, and it reads that thousands of the people have traveled to the country's capital to join the protests, which have been ongoing for months. All right, so we talking about thousands of people. By numbers, at least 31 people have been injured in the protests, per CNN, which cited the National Hospital of Sri Lanka. All right, okay, so that's miscellaneous, Salakia. All right, so the big picture. All right, Sri Lanka's government lacks sufficient foreign reserves to pay for fuel and other key imports. Okay, so they probably, suffering from, extremely high, ridiculously high gas prices, and other key imports. These are things that, the people depend on, such as food, certain, what was it called? Certain, it's a word for it. Certain things that people just, basically depend on, man. I'm trying to think of the word, escape my mind. But anyways, it continues on, and it reads, economic mismanagement, the Crown V pandemic, and unaffordable tax cuts passed in 2019 have helped plunge the country into an economic crisis. And that's crazy how, this is happening, on a big scale, worldwide with this Crown V, because here it is, when that happened, and the whole, country was in the lockdown, you had, small businesses that closed up, man. It closed up as a result, because they weren't able to pay off, the taxes, and they weren't making any income, and they were still being charged, for their business, basically. You had whole chains of businesses that got closed down because of the lockdowns. All right, and that really, what I'm saying, that really put a squeeze on the economy as a whole. Not just in here in Babylon, but worldwide. All right, so that's why, this thing is really, this coming time of Jacob's trouble is really going to try the whole world, man. The whole world is going to be going through it, but Babylon is going to get it the worst. All right, so continuing on, and it reads, the country is facing major food and medicine shortages, which doctors in the country said in May could lead to deaths. All right, so overall, the situation is not good in the country. So what happened? The people, basically rebelled against their rulers. All right, Salakia. Now here's another one. Okay, now let me see how long this article is. Man, it's a pretty long ass article, man. But this one's going into the Ukraine war. All right, and the EU not just the Ukraine war, but really the EU farmers, European Union farmer protests that's going on at the result of this. All right, it says Dutch farmer protests have stoked fires all over Europe over emission cuts. Okay, so all in all, there's just a spirit of unrest and uproars and protests all over the world. All right, I brought this out, a couple days ago. All right, with the truck protests in the U.S. All right, which just had the dude, he just got apprehended. But what they would do is they would take up all these truck drivers here in Babylon. They go to the freeways and take up all the lanes, all right, and drive extremely slow as a form of protest, and ultimately they would hold up traffic and things of that nature, So this spirit is all over the world, and why? Because the people are ultimately sick of Esau's rulership, man. All right, that's why the scripture says, when the righteous rule, all right, hold on, KJV, right there. All right, so book of Proverbs chapter 29 verse 2. All right, and this is going to be, this is really the perfect foundation, for the lesson. All right, it reads, all right, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. All right, and the reason why is because of all the unrighteous decrees. I did a lesson, a few days ago, all right, where, California passed a decree where basically, truck drivers have to be eligible and qualify to even be a truck driver. Having a truck, isn't good enough. You have to now, go through some process and you have to qualify in order to be a truck driver. And if you don't qualify, then you don't get to be a truck driver. You don't get to work for the companies, and this is ultimately put off, tens of thousands of truck drivers from the market, from the road, and that's going to ultimately cripple the supply chain crisis. And that's, something that's being seen, worldwide, whether it's, created by design, Esau, with his agents, agent provocateurs, or, people just, Yahweh Shem Shai put in the spirit, on these people to do this. Okay, it's still, either way, the manifestation of property, it's like a prophecy, and the manifestation, it's like the fulfillment of prophecy and the manifestation of the end of Esau's kingdom. All right, like it says, let me see, it says, while Ukraine war has hit the global energy security, the ongoing farmer protests in Europe over emission cut proposals will have a serious repercussion on food supply chains and could sink smaller economies in future. All right, so smaller economies goes into these smaller countries in the EU. All right, very much like you saw what happened in Sri Lanka, which is a smaller country. All right, we brought out the map. All right, let's bring it out again. All right, Sri Lanka. All right, very much how you saw, this is just a smaller country off the coast of India. All right, you got smaller countries in Europe too. That's what makes up the feet of the statue that Babylonian king, saw in his vision. How The legs were as iron, which represented the Roman Empire. All right, but then the feet were as iron and clay, meaning that you're gonna have some countries, in this new go around, right, in this Roman Empire revamped, you're gonna have some countries that are strong and other countries that are weak. Okay, and that's ultimately, what's being affected here. The weaker countries, the clay is being affected by these series of events. All right, so let's go into the next one. Oh, that's not really the next one. That's really it on that. But it's just going to show you that we at the end of this thing. All right, so I'm gonna read Proverbs chapter 29:2 once again. It reads, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn." Okay, and where was I going with this? You know what I'm saying is basically, when we in the kingdom, man, these heathens are gonna go into slavery. We're gonna jack them up, right? For 1,000 years, they're gonna get jacked up, man. They're gonna build our kingdom up. They're gonna be under hardcore bondage, right? And then guess what? They're gonna be, sent back to their own lands, with the exception of Esau, who's gonna be destroyed. These heathens are gonna be sent back to their own land, all right? But they're still gonna be subject and tributary unto us. But guess what? We're gonna rule them in righteousness, all right? They're gonna have, multiple wives and so on and so forth in their own lands. They're going to keep the laws and commandments, and guess what? They're going to love it, man. All right? They're going to love it. And if they transgress, guess what? The hammer's going to come down on them, But they're ultimately going to, it's going to be a different vibe. The world is going to be under a different vibration when we're in charge, man. All right? But the second part of the verse, it says, "But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn." All right? And the whole world is in mourning. The whole world is in uproar, man. All right, because this devil, the way he's ruling, he has none understanding in him. He has none understanding in him. That's why, in the book of Isaiah, chapter 14, it reads, chapter 14, verse 6, it reads, "He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, and he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and unhindereth." All right, because that's, how this devil is ruling, in anger. That's how he's ruling, in complete anger, man. All right, because, which I didn't mean to, repeat that again, but that's how, he's ruling, and he does that by ways of his military, man. Destabilizing countries, setting up military bases everywhere. If a country goes against his interests, the interests of ultimately these Rothschilds, these elites, what do? They send America. They send America their muscle, their big, their muscle, to go and deal with that country. What they do is they set up agent provocateurs, they set up, proxy wars, they destabilize countries, and then they usher in their military and they just take over, man. And that is an example of ruling the nations in anger, for their own selfish gain and their own, for their own benefit. They don't care about, the people living in Libya when the situation with Gaddafi transpired. They didn't care about them Ishmaelites living in Iraq when the situation, when that situation transpired, which these are heathens anyways, what I'm saying? But it just goes to show that once we're done, jacking these nations up in the 1,000 years of their hardcore bondage, they're going to be sent back in their own land and they're going to be ruled in righteousness, Ain't going to be no, what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, we're going to have everything, man. And there ain't going to be no, proxy wars. Ain't going to be none of that in the true world order. All right? So let me repeat that again. In the true world order, there will be no ruling of the nations in anger unless they go off. That's when we have to green light to get them, man. All right, so the next precept I'm gonna get is we're gonna go to the book of Second Esdras. All right, chapter 9, and it reads, "And he answered me then and said," starting from the top, "and he answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. All right, and that's what we're doing through the Spirit, doing these lessons, going out to the highways and hedges, and bringing out these events. All right, that's what we're doing. Measuring the time diligently, but not only that, we're blowing the trumpet. All right, and that's what it says in the book of Habakkuk chapter 2. All right, where it reads, I will stand upon my watch. All right, so like Habakkuk chapter 2 and 1, it reads, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and I will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And Yahweh Shem Yahushai answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. All right, and that's, ultimately what we're doing is, we're warning our people, standing upon our watch, we're blowing the trumpet. All right, blow, let me see, blow, blow the trumpet. All right, let me see. All right, there it is. All right, so this is a good one right here. The book of Joel, chapter 2, and verse 1. And it reads, blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. And let all the inhabitants of the earth, of the land, tremble. For the day of Yahweh Shem Yahushai cometh, for it is nigh at hand. All right, so that's what we're doing through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai when we bring out these events, man. And we line it up with the scriptures. So going back to 2 Ezra chapter 9 and 3, it reads, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world. All right, so these are the signs that are taking place. All right, you got a lot of earthquakes happening that have happened, and you got uproars of the people. All right, you got countries being, stormed, and different, presidential residencies being stormed. You got all these protests happening, in literally all over the world. You had one happen in the east, with Sri Lanka, right off the coast of India. As we went into, you have the farmer protests going on in the EU. All right, as a result of the Ukraine war and in the emissions bill that they're passing, it's, again, what I'm saying, this Esau, just seeking to oppress his people even more. Which he knows what he's doing. He knows that by getting passing these emissions and whatnot is gonna trigger the people to rebel. As part of his Hegelian dialect, is order ad chaos. Because he wants the people to be in that crazy state, so that he could declare that martial law, and come in. He just create as much chaos as he can. So at the end he could declare that martial law and declare that order and come in with the new system that he's trying to come in with. Where he's going to usher in the CHIP. So it continues on, verse 4. Then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of these things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. All right, and that's the prophecies. All right, these are the times that we're in. The latter days. All right, but the latter days for who? For us? No, for the children. Not for Esau, Edom, so-called white man. All right, because the elect is gonna, make it out of this thing. The elect is gonna be delivered. All right, and through the elect, the whole nation of Israel, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans that make up the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. All right, the nation of Israel is gonna be brought back. Okay, so this devil's end is our beginning. All right, so book of 2 Ezra chapter 16, verse not 16. The book of 2 Ezra chapter 15, verse 16. All right, and it reads, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. All right, and that's what we have seen. Okay, that's what we're witnessing all over the world. Uproars of the people having sedition, which sedition means to, you know, rebel against the government. You know, people not regarding their kings nor princes. You know, they was literally, you know, celebrating and partying in the ex president's, you know, a pool, you know, in his house. You know, throwing a party in there, man. You know, they just happy that they ran him out. You know, that's an example of them not regarding their kings nor their princes. All right. Verse 17, and a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. All right. Because in the midst of all this chaos that's going to happen, you know, here in Babylon, because here, you know, they really, you know, playing it strategic here in Babylon, man. You know what I'm saying? It won't be long until, you know what I'm saying, all you know, the food and you know, the supplies, you know, the essential things, all right, that the people need, you know, it's not going to be found on the shelves, and people are going to be faced with, you know, ridiculous inflations that it's going to cause a lot of chaos. People's going to take to the streets, protest, you know, and that's when martial law is going to be declared. That's when a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. All right, so all this is ultimately, you know what I'm saying, if this is, you know, of Esau's own design, it's still, you know, Yahweh Bashim Hawashai putting the spirit in him to do this. All right, because ultimately with these devils enacting their new world order, all right, their agendas, they're going to be taken by it. All right, them enacting these agendas is basically their downfall, you know, which is really, you know, the time appointed for them to, you know, to rule being finished anyways. All right, so hey, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. All right, with that, I'm going to say, call halal Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahawashi, Ba'ashim Rachah Kodash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, once again for giving me the spirit to do this lesson. You know, just watching the times. With that, I'm going to say shalom. On to the next.